Hey guys, so I wasn't really sure if I actually wanted to do this video or not, but then I started making it and scripting it and I decided it was definitely a really good idea, and it really tied together the entire Season 3, even though we kind of ended it a little while ago. I figured it might be a little bit interesting for you guys to watch. Overall, compared to all of the rest of my videos and things, this has taken about 5 times as long as them. I've been working on this for about 5 hours straight now. And scripting and stuff, it was super fun, so I really hope you enjoy. If you do, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and leave a like or whatever it is. Just a little suggestion if you want to support the channel. But without further ado, please enjoy the entire, full, probably not missing any details, lore story of Raincraft Season 3. It began with the first light. All of the people were on the hill, where they appeared to conquer this land. They were envious, adventurous, curious. They were the people of Raincraft. In the beginning, there was only chaos. Many built homes, many hid. There was no government, no allies, only survival. There was argument on occasion, and many players died at the hand of another with no probable cause. The world was on edge. The first group to form was one that would be feared for months to come, though they would not be revealed for some time. Ravenlift and Crescent worked side by side from day one, and though many not knew it, they always had the same interest: power. Next, Rodude and Comet grouped to build a great home, that which still stands today. A Japanese-like set of buildings and towers, which represent peace and home. Cyborg Ducky, meanwhile, lived out on a far shore with Pixelema, in a humble cave home, away from the chaos reaching. The rest of the players, however, were cards waiting to be drawn. The first card being none other than Cublicity, and a small shrine, later to be known as the Oasis Stone. Distant on the far shore, Cublicity finally continued his journey to peace within this chaos. He reached the far shore, not too late, but just in time to see what Cyborg Ducky had been working on. There was a monument, a shrine, and a symbol for peace. What stood before him was the Oasis Stone. This stone's properties were never fully understood, but the power within was great. This stone would be where the followers of this great organization would pledge their loyalty and become one with the Oasis Stone. This would create the Oasis. Cyborg Ducky guided Cublicity to a place, unknown to most, but soon would be a major location in the world's history. It was a mountain, a range rather, with a rock in the middle. This would be the final location for the Oasis and its followers and its stone. Cublicity joined the Oasis. This meant peace. In this world of weakening chaos, there was no government, and though there were only groups of those seeking peace, there were rules, somewhat like war pacts in their own ways. These were the commandments of the world. They spoke that the end dimension would not be visited, that death must always be for a reason, and that all materials must be collected by hand. The people were to work hard for what they had. This, however, only had enforcement by other players. It was at this moment in time that Rodude would stumble upon the first of many of Ravenlift and Crescent's secret bases. What Rodude found, unmistakably known as utter disobedience of the commandments. There were automatic generators, creating cheap food, armor, and many other things that made survival. Rodude made the decision then and there that he would destroy these generators and restore justice to the commandments. Next, however, Crescent and Ravenlift would find their base in ruins, and flee to a never-known location. However, this meant war. Many small attacks led to a final battle, in which small explosions were placed at Rodud and Comet's home. In the end, many of the wildcard players were united on either side, and a full-scale battle broke loose. Rodud's army killed Crescent and left his stuff in the fields and carried most within their hands. Crescent then reached for his last remaining rope, gained 3 Wither Skulls from Ravenlift, and offered a trade. His stuff would be returned, or a great creature of destruction would be summoned at their home. Crescent's items were destroyed, and with them went many parts of the home. Crescent ran, and Rodud left. The war was fought, and both sides suffered great losses. This was at the moment that Crescent and Ravenlift seemed to be going their separate ways, but unbeknownst to all, they still had each other's backs, and a base of operations ready, whenever it may be needed. The commandments of the world had been broken before, and had even been warred upon as a result, but that did not mean they would never be broken again. Even today, after all destruction, small remnants of unlawful creations can be found, scattered across secret locations, unknown whose ownership each was assigned to. By now, Crescent had escaped his primary life of destruction, and asked forgiveness by pledging his loyalty to the Oasis. He was one with peace. It is not necessarily known how, but at some point a secret entrance to the end dimension was found. This was not meant to be, as the end was a dangerous place, sealed off to man. The temptation prevailed, and none but Crescent traveled into this deep, dark place. What would happen when the rest of the people found out, however, would be history repeating itself. Cublicity and his allies fought long and hard, and eventually reached the pair of wings that Crescent had collected in his dark travels. Yet once again, Crescent reached to his remaining strings, carried skulls in his bare hands, traveled to the Oasis, which had now been built up to its partial glory, and he spoke his final words as part of the peace. You brought this upon yourself. 5 more of these terrible creatures were summoned. Cublicity called upon his allies one last time to help him end this madness. They fought their peace, their glory, and the safety of the world. Many structures were nearly destroyed, however the people's army prevailed, killing every last one of the creatures that lurked the overworld. Diplomatic approaches were held, Crescent was removed from the peace group, and his items were once again lost to the destruction in the hands of his enemies. The only issues remaining, however, were the questions lurking in Cublicity's head. If this was such a peaceful place, then how had it turned on itself? What would this lead to? Would not be realized by anyone until it was too late. Though Crescent had been brutally removed from the Oasis, he was strangely not frowned upon by most. Cublicity still felt a secure ally with him, and vice versa. This was not necessarily to be used. However, it was shown that the world was at the reach of its breath, speaking not, but enjoying the pause of silence in between. It was a grace period, in which Cublicity remembered the trust factor he had given Crescent back when he had pledged his loyalty. He had stolen his sword for a reason unknown to any back in the dark days of chaos, and had bestowed it upon him in trust and reconciliation. In this moment, Cublicity knew he was not meant to be here. Crescent had been right to leave the Oasis, no matter what cause, as it served no purpose it claimed to. Cublicity waited, and he slowly began his master plan. He stashed food to steal, plotted with those none would believe, and yet, to the leader and followers of the Oasis, he was only loyal. Weeks later, Cublicity had built his home in the Oasis, many landscaped part of the Oasis, and helped relocate the source of the oasis, the stone, into the cave in the rock at the heart of the oasis. He was bonded in the eyes of his allies, but on his own, they were merely a project to enable his greatest betrayal of all time. This was the time in which Sodipop, who had evacuated the lands due to the Dark Ages, returned, and sought to join this group of peace. However, his ceremony of loyalty would not go the same as others. Cublicity reached out to his former ally in hopes to regain that bond, and called upon Crescent to help him with his master plan. He attempted to hide Crescent down in a crevice of the Oasis Stone's cave before Sodipop's initiation. However, he was noticed by Cyborg Ducky, though it was played off as though he was invited to watch his former group in interest. The event began. Sodipop invoked his pledge, he ate his gold-plated apple, and was struck by lightning to release the tendrils within all members of the Oasis. But in this moment, Cublicity placed a button, and called for Crescent to release Havoc. He pressed the button, activating many explosives and attacking Cyborg Ducky. Crescent murdered the newly invoked member, as did Cublicity to Cyborg, speaking the final words that this group was destined to fail, and he wanted no part of it anymore. The Oasis had been delivered a message that would never be forgotten. During Cublicity's plotting, there had been a new location in the midst of the server. However, far away, it was not noticed, until Cublicity reached out to Crescent. Crescent had begun building a great city, which would be open to all who seek not peace, but safety. This was a place for allies to build a great location and have powerful allies to help them protect it. Cublicity fled his betrayal to this city and asked his ally and enemy to be only his ally and join this city. Much thought passed, and finally Crescent agreed. Cublicity and Crescent, the great duo, spent weeks collecting materials by hand and building a great landmark, the city. Weeks into this process, however, Crescent noticed one thing that he was sure Cublicity noticed as well. The tendrils that every Oasis member had spreading over them had begun to return after they disappeared from the betrayal. This only meant one thing, and that they had to destroy the source. The stone that held the unknown power. The Oasis stone had to be blown to pieces. The two who led the city left their collection of safety and ventured into the Oasis, with the only intention of destroying the source. However, when they reached their destination, what they found was not what they expected. The Oasis was now a large mountain, with strange pyramidal-shaped patterns around it, encasing it in a large cobblestone cocoon. It was now known as the Lava Cast, as Cyborg Ducky had encased the remains of his once great civilization, yet the source still lived, as did the tendrils in all who pledged loyalty. Crescent and Cublicity ventured to the top in hopes to align with the cave holding the stone, and dug down. They dug for quite some time, before dropping into a cave which was immediately recognized as the place for it was stone, as it was there, standing in power, still withholding the great secret of the Oasis. Cublicity raced to rig the stone with explosives, and backed up so as not to be injured by the explosion, as Crescent detonated it remotely. The stone exploded with such violence that even at the distance the two were at, they still came out with minor injuries. Yet they had succeeded, and their tendrils had disappeared once for all, as did all the other members. However, a new issue surprised the minds of Crescent and Cublicity, as now what stood before them was not the stone, but a final release of its power. There was a portal ripping through the ground of the cave that seemed endless, as the one place it led was the deep, dark place sealed off to man. The end. Crescent and Cublicity knew what they had to do, and they raced inside, claimed the head of the dragon which had claimed the destroyer of those who may try to enter. The end was freed from its danger, and the two returned to their city of safety. However, they would not know that it wouldn't stay safe for long. Tensions were high. Crescent and Cublicity had ended the Group of Beasts, and their source of power. Yet they still remained as a group of people who believed in what they had started. The city prepared for the worst, unbeknownst to them that what would come was far worse. It began with a finding that shocked the words of Cublicity's mouth as he tried to warn Crescent to flee the city. He had found a reminiscence of the Oasis Stone deep below the earth of the city, with an engraving that read, Nos non moriatur, Latin for, we will not die. Cublicity saw this as a threat. He led Crescent to the top of the tallest building in the great city, and spoke to him his findings, and told him the inevitable truth. They had to declare war, and deliver the final death of the Oasis members. Reluctantly, they both agreed, and traveled to the original hill in which so many curious adventurers had set foot on before anything had been touched. They called upon the rest of the world to come to the location holy to those who understood. They began to speak. However, the point was not reaching conclusion, and Crescent reached, one last time, into his collection of skulls, bringing the world to a halt in the second before he yelled, You gave no option but war. Cublicity and Crescent summoned their allies and an army of three-headed creatures, and killed every last one of the Oasis members for the final time. However, what was noticed quickly is the destruction was not ending, as fighting continued as if everyone was releasing any anger they had withheld on anything in sight. Cublicity called upon the one man he knew had any power left, and spoke to him the final words of the world's view of light. A small chuckle of almost disbelief in what the world had become, and the three-world command. Destroy it all.